He didn't think much of the alien girl at first. She was quiet, tall, and had smooth purple skin that shimmered under the station lights. Her 4 long tentacles flowed behind her like ribbons in water. Most people avoided her kind, they said. Her species, the Valari, didn't like humans, but she never said anything rude. She just watched people with big silver eyes. Like she was learning, Jake was new on the station. Just a cargo technician from Earth. He fixed broken crates, moved supplies, and tried to stay out of trouble. But that morning, something strange happened. He was walking down the hall, arms full of food packs, when he bumped right into her. Food went flying, and he stumbled backward. The alien girl didn't move. She stood there like a statue, one of her tentacles reaching out and catching a pack of noodles mid-air. Jake blinked, surprised. Then, trying to lighten the moment, he chuckled and said, "Your tentacles look great today." The air changed. It became still, heavy like the ship had stopped breathing. She turned slowly to look at him. Her silver eyes stared deep into his. And then she smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was wide, full of sharp teeth, but not threatening. There was something else in her expression, curiosity, maybe even happiness. Jake laughed nervously and picked up the rest of the packs. He nodded and walked away, thinking that was just a funny moment. But from that day forward, things got weird. He started seeing her everywhere. In the dining hall, she sat 3 tables away, always facing him, in the cargo bay. She passed by without a word, but never looked away. Even in the hallway near the showers, she waited until he passed. Jake began feeling uneasy. He told his friend Sam about it. "She's following me," Jake said. Sam laughed at first, then stopped. "The Valari don't just follow people," he said. "They choose." "Choose?" Jake asked. "You complimented her tentacles," Sam whispered. "That's like serious flirting to them." Jake stared at him, stunned. "I was just being polite," he said. Sam shook his head. "Not in their culture. She might think you're her mate now." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept hearing soft sounds outside his room. The next morning, he opened the door and found something strange. A small box wrapped in silver thread. Inside it was a glowing blue stone, warm to the touch. Attached was a note in shaky handwriting. "Thank you, I like you too." He dropped the stone in surprise. The hallway was empty, but he felt like she was watching. He picked up the box and locked his door. "What do I do now?" he whispered to himself. Later that day, she appeared again. He was working in the engine bay when he felt a presence. He turned and saw her standing quietly, hands behind her back. No one else was around. "I bring you gift," she said slowly. Her voice was soft, deep, almost like music underwater. She stepped closer and offered a strange fruit, glowing faintly. He took it with shaking hands. "Thanks," he muttered, unsure what else to say. She tilted her head, watching him closely. "Do you accept?" she asked. Jake didn't know what to say. "Accept what?" he asked, but she just smiled again. Then she turned and walked away without a sound. That night, Jake locked his door again. He sat on his bed, holding the glowing fruit. He didn't understand what was happening. He had made a joke, a small comment. Now this alien girl was acting like he belonged to her. And the scary part was, something deep inside him wasn't sure if he hated it. Jake didn't go to the cafeteria that morning. He didn't want to see her again. He stayed in his room, staring at the glowing blue stone and half-eaten alien fruit. The air smelled strange, now like warm flowers and spice. It clung to his clothes, his sheets, even his skin. The scent came from the gift, and it didn't fade. He tried to forget the look in her eyes when she said, "Do you accept?" But her face kept appearing in his mind, calm, strange, curious. Not human at all, and yet not scary either. Jake finally left his room in the afternoon. He walked quickly, hoping to avoid her, but she was already there. Standing at the end of the hallway, her silver eyes watched him with that same deep look, like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. He stopped, heart racing. She walked toward him, slow and graceful. Other crew members passed by, whispering. Some looked at Jake with wide eyes, others with pity. One older engineer whispered, "Poor kid, he triggered a bonding." She stopped right in front of him, holding something wrapped in soft blue cloth. "I made this," she said, voice low and steady. He opened it carefully. Inside was a carved piece of her own tentacle shell, shaped like a spiral, smooth and cool. The color shifted in the light deep purple, turning gold, then red. "This is beautiful," Jake said, unsure what else to do. Her tentacles twitched gently. "Like a smile. Your voice was first," she said. "Then your eyes, then your smell." Jake blinked. Confused and a little nervous, she leaned in close and whispered, "I remember your scent now, forever." He took a step back. "I think there's been a mistake," he said quickly. "I didn't mean anything serious. It was just a joke." She tilted her head again, the way she always did when she didn't understand. "Joke?" She repeated softly, like tasting the word. "I didn't mean bonding or anything," Jake said, trying to explain. But she just stared, then whispered, "I already chose." Jake backed away slowly. He needed space. He needed to breathe. He turned and walked fast, not looking back. He didn't stop until he reached the far end of the ship, near the unused hangars. There he leaned against a wall and closed his eyes. He stayed there for hours. No one came to find him. But when he returned to his room, the hallway smelled again like flowers and spice. He opened the door and froze. A soft glowing trail of dust led from the floor to his bed. There, placed neatly, was a small device with alien markings. He picked it up, and it pulsed in his palm. A small light flickered, and then her voice came through. "I won't hurt you," it said. "I only want to understand." Jake sat on the edge of the bed, stunned. Why him? Why now? He was just a technician. He wasn't special. He didn't save her life, or fight in wars, or build anything great. He just said something stupid, something kind, maybe, but still stupid. The next day, she didn't follow him, not in the halls, not in the cafeteria, not even near his work zone. But he could feel her absence, like the silence after music ends, and that scared him more than her presence ever did. Something had changed, inside him, outside him, and he knew deep down that he had crossed into something far bigger than he could understand. A compliment, a smile, a gift. All of it was just the beginning. And somewhere in the dark parts of the ship, she was waiting again, not angry, not sad, just waiting, because to her, the bond had already begun. Jake didn't speak to anyone the next day. His hands moved through his work like normal, sorting crates and checking ship logs. But his mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about the device she left, her soft voice saying, "I won't hurt you." It kept playing in his head again and again, like a memory that refused to go away. He tried asking around, but no one gave clear answers. Some just shook their heads. Others told him to stay quiet. One older alien warned him not to reject her in public. Jake didn't understand why, but the fear in the man's voice was real. Later that evening, a quiet alarm rang through the station, not loud, just a soft chime that echoed through the halls. Jake looked up and saw several aliens moving toward the docking bay. Curious, he followed. When he arrived, 3 tall Velari elders had landed. They wore long robes that shimmered like oil lighty. Each had larger, thicker tentacles than the girl, and glowing marks across their skin. The moment they stepped onto the floor, everything went quiet. Crew members bowed slightly, even the humans. Jake stood at the edge, unsure what to do. Then one of the elders turned and looked straight at him. "You are the one," the elder said. The voice was calm but powerful. Jake felt it inside his chest like a vibration. I don't understand," Jake replied, his voice shaking. The other 2 elders stepped closer, their eyes scanning him slowly. "You made the signal," one of them said. "You gave the invitation." Jake took a step back. "I didn't mean to," he said. "It was just a joke." The first elder tilted his head. "In our way, there are no jokes with the bond. He raised one long tentacle and pointed toward the far wall. The girl stepped forward from the shadows. Her eyes locked on Jake. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She just stood beside the elders, silent and still. "She has responded," the elder continued. "She has chosen you." Jake shook his head. "This isn't fair," he said. "I didn't agree to anything." Another elder raised a hand. "In your world, words are wind," he said. "In ours, words shape fate." Jake felt his heart pounding. He looked at the girl again, searching for something in her face. But she just stared at him, waiting. Her tentacles were calm now, folded. Neatly behind her back, there was no anger, no sadness, only a strange kind of patience. "What happens if I say no?" Jake asked softly. The room grew colder. The elders looked at each other, then at the girl. Finally, one of them said, "Then she will be shamed. She will be cast out from her people. She will carry the mark of rejection until death." Jake's mouth went dry. He hadn't meant to do this. He didn't want this. But he also didn't want to destroy someone's life over one stupid sentence. His brain screamed at him to run, but his feet stayed where they were. One elder stepped forward, holding a small silver ring with glowing lines. "If you accept, wear this," he said. Jake stared at the ring. It looked simple, but it felt heavy, like it carried the weight of two worlds. He didn't move. His hands stayed at his sides. Girl finally took a step forward, slowly reaching out. She gently placed something in his hand, a tiny piece of her shell, the one he had returned. He looked at it, then at her, and for the first time, he saw something behind her eyes. Fear. Real fear, hidden deep. She wasn't just some strange alien girl anymore. She was someone who had taken a risk, someone who didn't want to be alone, and someone who had believed his simple words meant something real. Jake didn't know what he was feeling. He was still scared, still confused. But as he closed his fingers around the shell, he knew one thing for sure. This was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Jake didn't sleep that night. He stared at the silver ring in his hand, turning it over again and again. It didn't glow like before, but it still felt warm. He had not put it on, not yet. The girl's shell piece sat beside it on the small table. Together, they looked like two pieces of a puzzle waiting to fit. The elders had left without pressure. They said the choice was his, but their eyes said something else. They said time was running out. Jake didn't like being forced, but he also didn't like the fear he saw in the girl's eyes. That fear stayed with him. Even when he closed his eyes, it was there, quiet, trembling, honest. He decided to leave the station, just for a little while. There was a small mining outpost on a nearby moon. He could get a supply run assignment and disappear for a few days. He packed quickly, trying not to think too hard. He didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. The shuttle bay was quiet when he arrived. The lights were dim, and only two pilots stood by. He walked toward the dock with quick steps, but just before he reached the ramp, someone stepped into his path. It was her. She stood in front of the ramp, arms folded, tentacles curling slowly behind her. Jake froze. "I just need space," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. She didn't move. "You leave without word," she said softly. Her voice sounded smaller than before, almost like a child's. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Jake said. I can't do this." She stepped closer. "Not hurt," she whispered, "but afraid." He didn't know what to say. She reached into her robe and pulled out something strange. A metal shard with deep scars across it. She held it to her chest, then offered it to him. "This was me," she said. "Before you." Jake took it carefully. The surface was rough and cracked. She touched his hand gently. "Others laughed," she said. "Mocked." He looked at her face again. She wasn't just some alien who wanted a bond. She was someone who had been broken before, someone who had learned how to stay silent to survive. And now somehow she had found something in his simple words. A light appeared behind her, another shuttle arriving. Jake heard voices shouting, but the girl didn't turn. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked through the air. A small dart hit the wall beside them. Hissing with steam, Jake jumped back. The girl pulled him behind a crate, shielding him with her body. He looked over the crate and saw two masked figures. Armed fast, not from the station. They aimed again, this time at her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she launched forward, her tentacles wrapping around one attacker like a whip. Jake watched in shock as she moved with speed and strength. He didn't. No, she had. One attacker dropped to the ground. The other ran back into the shadows. Alarms started blaring. Station security arrived, too late to see the fight. But the attacker on the ground was unconscious. And the girl stood tall. She had protected him, not out of duty, but out of something deeper. The elders returned again, this time faster than before. They looked at Jake with new eyes. "You see now," one said. "She risked exile, pain, even death." Jake nodded slowly, still shaken. "She didn't have to save me," he whispered. "She chose to." The elder stepped forward, holding the silver ring again, but this time he didn't offer it. He simply placed it gently on the table beside Jake. "You are not being trapped," the elder said. "You are being trusted." Jake looked at the ring, then at the girl. She didn't speak, but her eyes were filled with something that hadn't been there before. Hope. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know what a bond like this meant, but he knew one thing. He didn't want to run anymore. Jake didn't touch the silver ring for 2 days. He kept it on the table, beside the shell piece and the scarred shard she had given him. He stared at them often, but didn't move. His thoughts were loud and heavy every time he closed his eyes. He saw her standing in front of that dart, protecting him like her own life meant nothing. The crew had questions, some wanted details. Some just watched him from afar. But no one teased, and no one laughed anymore. After what happened at the shuttle dock, the entire station treated her differently. Not as a strange alien girl, but as someone who had done something brave. And Jake, he was no longer just the human technician. He was something else now. Something people couldn't label yet. He found her sitting alone in the observation deck. She was looking at the stars, silent, unmoving. One of her tentacles moved slowly. Beside her, as if waving at the sky, Jake sat next to her without saying a word. For a long time they just looked out at space together. Finally she spoke. "You did not run today." He nodded. "No," he said softly. "I didn't." She turned to look at him. "I was afraid you would disappear." Jake looked down at his hands. "I was going to," he admitted. "But then you saved me." She nodded slowly. "In my world, bond means protect, not control." He looked at her again. Really looked this time. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. There were faint marks near her temple scars, faded but deep. He hadn't noticed them before. "What happened to you?" he asked. She didn't speak for a while. Then she reached out and placed her fingers over the scars. "I spoke when I should have been quiet," she said. "I touched someone who said I was dirty." Jake's chest tightened. "Who would do that to you?" he whispered. She didn't answer. "They said my tentacles were twisted," she continued. "Not beautiful, not pure." Jake shook his head. "They were wrong," he said. Her eyes widened slightly. "You said that before," she whispered, "and my world changed." Jake didn't know how to respond. He had made a simple comment, half joking, but to her, it had been a door. A light in a place that had only known dark. She took something from her robe. It was a tiny stone, dull gray with one blue stripe down the middle. She held it between her fingers. "This is a soul mark," she said. "We give it only once." Jake watched as she placed it in his hand. It was cool to the touch, but the longer he held it, the warmer it became. "If you keep it, I wait," she said. "If you return it, I forget." Jake stared at the stone. Everything inside him felt like a storm. He had come to space to escape boredom. Now he was sitting beside an alien girl who trusted him more than anyone ever had. "I don't know what this means," he said honestly. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." She nodded. "Neither do I." They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't cold or strange, it was peaceful. Like two different lives finally resting in the same moment. Jake didn't make a choice that day. He didn't wear the ring or return the stone. But he didn't leave either, and she didn't ask him to. For now, that was enough, and somewhere deep inside both of them, a bond was growing, slow and real. Not because of rules or gifts, but because two broken hearts had found each other in the vast silence of space. The council called for them the next morning. A message blinked on Jake's cum panel. Short and direct, presence required, no delay. He hadn't even touched the ring yet. The soul-marked stone still sat on his bedside shelf, glowing faintly. Through the night, he didn't know what the council wanted. But something about the message felt final. He dressed quickly and met her in the center hallway. She was already waiting, her robe darker than usual, her eyes serious. Neither of them spoke as they walked to the upper chamber. The doors opened with a deep hiss, and inside stood the three Velari elders. The tallest elder stepped forward, his tentacles shining with thin gold lines. "We must end the silence," he said. Jake stayed still. The girl looked down, not speaking. "This bond cannot remain uncertain," the elder said. "It has created waves across both our people." Jake swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "But you accepted her gift." The elder replied, "And you did not reject it." The second elder raised a long crystal rod and placed it between them. "Do you accept her before all stars?" he asked. The words felt heavy, ancient. Jake glanced at her. Her head was still low, but her fingers were shaking. He stepped forward slowly. "I don't know what it means to do that," he said, "but I know what it means to leave her." He looked back at the elders, "And I won't." A strange warmth filled the room. Not heat, but something else. Like pressure being released from something locked too long. The third elder nodded. "Then the bond is alive," he said, "and it must be honored." A deep hum echoed through the chamber. The light dimmed, and the crystal rod glowed between them. The girl lifted her head slowly, eyes shining with tears that didn't fall. Jake reached out, and for the first time, he touched one of her tentacles on purpose. It curled gently around his wrist, light as air, and somehow it felt more real than anything he'd ever touched before. But not everyone was happy. Later that day, a message came from Earth's command. "Unauthorized cultural agreement detected," it read. "You are ordered to report back for questioning." Jake stared at the message and laughed under his breath. Of course Earth would find a way to ruin something good. She saw the message too. And she looked at him like she was ready to let go if he asked. He shook his head. "I'm not going anywhere without you," he said. That night, someone tried to break into his quarters. The locks held, but barely. He didn't sleep. He sat by the door, holding a small tool in one hand and the glowing soul mark in the other. She stayed with him the entire night, silent but awake. They didn't speak. But their silence felt strong now, not empty. The next morning, the station was different. Some humans avoided him. Some Velari bowed gently as he passed. He wasn't just a technician anymore. He was something else now. Something between two worlds. They stood at the window together, watching a ship approach. Earth's envoy was coming. And Jake knew what they were going to say, that he had crossed a line, that rules had been broken. That this was not allowed, but he didn't care anymore. Because in a galaxy full of stars, he had found someone who saw him when no one else did. And he had seen her too. Past the tentacles, past the scars, past the silence, he saw the heart. She had hidden from everyone, even herself. The door chimed. The envoy had arrived, and this time, Jake didn't run. He reached for her hand, and she gave it to him without hesitation, because no matter what came next, they would face it together. Jake stood in front of the Earth envoy like a man on trial. The human officers wore gray uniforms and cold eyes. They spoke without feeling, as if he was a broken tool that needed fixing. "You've bonded with a non-human life form under unauthorized conditions," one said. "This is a violation of interspecies contact protocols." Another added, but Jake didn't flinch. He just stood beside her, their hands still linked. She didn't say a word during the hearing. She only looked at the humans with quiet strength. Her presence alone made the room feel smaller. Even without speaking, she was powerful. Not with weapons, but with will. Jake explained everything. He told them about the compliment, the gifts, the saving. He told them how she had never forced him, how it had all grown step by step. He spoke simply, truthfully, and without apology. And when he was done, the room was silent. One officer leaned back and sighed. "This will create a political storm," he muttered. Another one nodded. "Do you understand what you've started?" Jake looked at her, then back at them. "I didn't start it," he said. "I just didn't walk away from it." They didn't like that answer, but they didn't argue. They couldn't. In the end, they told him the truth. He could return to Earth, keep his job, and forget everything. Or he could stay here and be removed from Earth service forever. It wasn't a choice that needed time. Jake already knew. He chose her, not because she saved him, not because of duty or guilt, but because she was the first soul in space who had made him feel seen, and he had done the same for her. The bond was marked in the station records that night. For the first time in recorded history, a human and a Valari were officially joined. Some celebrated, some were angry, but no one could deny it anymore. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. A Valari elder asked Jake to teach a class on human humor. A human officer brought a gift to the Valari girl flowers, unsure but genuine. Walls that had been tall for years began to bend, just a little, and all because of one small compliment. Jake wore the silver ring now, not as a prisoner of tradition, but as a symbol of choice, of courage, of something born from an awkward smile and 4 graceful tentacles. She spoke better. English now, not perfect, but enough to tease him when he got nervous. "Still think my tentacles look good?" She asked one evening. He laughed. "They look even better now." They watched Earth rise from the edge of the station one evening. He told her stories about oceans and forests and silly Earth food. She told him about glowing caves under her. Homeworld and songs only sung through touch. 2 hearts, once strangers, now beating in the same rhythm, and somewhere far beyond the stars, where no maps could reach, a new path was opening. A path where love didn't care about species, rules, or fear. It only cared that someone had finally looked and stayed.